Hi everybody, this is Aaron from ASMR Destiny, and this is going to be story time. At first it felt like a burning sensation, then it was nothing at all. It was a dreadful silence. It lasted a while. It was cold too. If my eyes were open, I'm sure I would have been able to see my breath. Finally, after what felt like an hour of silence, I heard a thud. It wasn't until I opened up my eyes that I realized that it was my head that made the thud. I winced in pain as it hit me like a powerful wave. Though I wanted to scream, I stayed silent. I didn't know what happened to me or who did it. I listened for footsteps, breathing, any sign that there was someone around. Reassuring myself I was alone, I stood up. I appeared to be in some sort of hallway. Everything was white. My shoes didn't even make a mark, and to be fair, they were pretty mucky. You see, I lived on a farm, after all. My stomach felt like it has been turned over, like when you're on a roller coaster and you're just about to go down the steep part. I sniffed a bit. The air didn't smell like anything. I wandered down the hall, looking for a window or a door. I didn't find any. There was no difference in the walls all the way down the hall, except for 3 luminous dots here and there. I reached a hand out to touch one, and a jolt of electricity was sent through me. I gasped and furrowed my brow, examining my hand for burns. Nothing. Am I dead? I think I'm dead. I'm probably dead, I thought to myself. Regardless, I kept down the hall until I saw the end of it. It looked like a dead end. There were 3 little dots on the side of it, too. One red, one blue, and one green. There was also a symbol over them. It looked like a crest, but not the kind you would expect. It was a crescent moon with 3 stars inside of it. Before I could reach out and touch it, it was like part of the wall slid up into the roof. I stepped back, caught off guard. Not by the weird door, but by the man standing in it. His face was none like I've ever seen. He had the features of a human, but he was blue. Yes, blue. A very nice shade of blue, mind you. And his eyes were a gleaming sort of white, but not like dead white. He was very handsome, once you got over the fact that he's most certainly wasn't human. No, I think to myself, just because he isn't human doesn't make him unattractive, I scold myself. I made a noise of surprise, but he was definitely more surprised than I was. His eyes widened, and he glanced behind him. "Fawnin, is everything all right?" a voice called. I heard a chair creak behind him. "Yes, I've just remembered something. I'll be back in a fracture," he replied, stepping towards me so the door would shut. I told myself to ask him what a fracture was later, if I lasted till then. He grabbed me by my arm and started tugging me the way I came, his stride brisk. "You speak English?" I inquired. He nodded. "You must hide. If the captain finds a stowaway, he will surely take one of my stars." I frowned. Stars? Why do I have to hide? Secondly, where am I? Why am I here? He stopped and hushed me before carrying on. "Oi," I said. feeling my face getting warm. "I'd rather like to know." I winced, feeling a pain where I'd hit my head. "Be quiet. We must hide. They are coming." He turned towards the wall and flashed his palm in front of the green light. The door opened soundlessly and he ushered me inside. I jabbed him with my elbow and sat down against the wall. He sat across from me. He looked pretty young, not that I could tell exactly, but his eyes seemed innocent and still gleamed with excitement and curiosity. He looked at me incredulously. Before I could stop myself, I blurted simply, "What?" He chuckled. I felt myself go red. He returned his face to the serious look he had on before. "Who are you? Why are you here?" he asked, shutting the door. He pulled something from his pocket. It looked sort of like a furry miniature balloon. It was white and looked soft. He stroked it with his pale blue hand, and it seemed to light up, but not like a machine turning on. It was like it was alive, and it was waking up from a nap or something. He let go of it, and it seemed to just float. I blinked in amazement, wanting to ask what it was, but there were more pressing questions. "Why do we have to hide?" I asked Fanon. He ran his hands through his hair and frowned. "Because you wouldn't want to know what to do to stowaways like you." "What do they do? Do they like me?" I said you don't want to know. "Well, obviously, if I'm still asking, even after you told me I didn't want to know, I want to know." He sighed and shook his head at me. "I can't tell you. Now it's my turn to ask a question." His left hand twitched. It seemed like he was hiding something. "How did you get here?" "That's a great question. I have no clue." I was agitated by then. I never liked standing on ground I didn't know. Fanon sighed and ran his tongue over his teeth. "What's your name?" he asked. I hesitated, but replied simply, Margot Harris." I answered, looking him straight in the eyes. "Where are we?" I inquired, voice firm. "We're on the Antares." It sounded like a name of a ship. He patted the wall beside himself, as if he were patting someone on the back in congratulations. "I'm not seasick." There was definitely a feeling in my stomach, but it wasn't seasickness. It was as if I was suspended, and nothing around me was moving. He rolled his eyes and muttered something under his breath. It sounded like an insult, but I was too focused on what he was doing with his hands. Suddenly, there were inscriptions on the wall, lit up like little dots. They looked like some sort of language. He touched one that looked like a modified version of the Gemini sign, but nothing happened. I furrowed my brow. "What am..." And he cut me off. "Blink," he simply said. I did so, and I couldn't believe my eyes. I never thought I would ever see the stars from anywhere but the barn roof. But damn, they were so beautiful, and they never stopped. Sentinels over every expanse of the galaxy. "All right then, do you know why you're here?" He quirked a brow at me. I snorted in reply. "I was feeding my cows, and then I was here." I shrugged. He tilted his head much like a confused dog would. "Cows? What are cows?" he asked. the curious gleam in his eyes returning. The corner of my mouth twitched. They're, an animal where I'm, from. They make milk, I replied, trying to explain as best I could, but he gave me a blank stare. Milk, it's a liquid that provides calcium, and it's white. He nodded, squinting. I laughed a bit, glancing at my muddy boots. I missed my home. This place was so foreign, and I didn't understand anything. My head was also still swimming. Where was I? When was I? What would my dad say? I need to get off this thing. My dad'll worry, please. My voice became urgent, and he only smiled, a hint of sadness in his eyes. Here. He began to put out his hand. Hesitantly, I put mine out as well. He then whipped out a silver object, which didn't scare me, but then I realized that it was pointy. I tried to take my hand away, but he had a firm grip on my wrist, and in a swift motion, he put my palm in between the pointy part of the machine and the bottom, and pushed on the two handles like scissors. I opened my mouth to scream, but it didn't hurt. It took a couple seconds, but I felt no pain. I didn't even realize, when he put the machine back in his pocket, I was too engrossed in the fascination that it didn't hurt. How did you... I began, but he cut me off again. Gift. Had it since I was a hatchling. I was about to ask if the hatchling thing was a joke, but then I remembered that he just poked me with a sharp thing and I didn't even know why. What did it do? The weird thing you just jabbed into me, I mean. He laughed a little, but replied evenly. It changes the flow of the time streams, so you could be here for 2 years, and it would be maybe 2 minutes down on Earth. I nodded slowly. There was nothing showing on the surface of my palm, but Fanon hurried to explain. He took my palm. The line on your hand closest to your fingers slows down time. The next one down makes it faster, he explained, raising an eyebrow at me to confirm I understood. I nodded quickly as he ran his index finger along in quick motions on both lines on my hand. When he was done, he relaxed, admiring his work. Right then. You're now only been gone 2 nanoseconds down on Earth. I stared down at my palm and thought for a moment, the cord finally snapping, the weight falling on my own shoulders now. I was so far away from home. I didn't even know where I was. I just had an invisible device inserted into my hand. The only person I can trust so far on this stupid ship is Blue. Blue. I didn't even realize my eyes were filled with tears until one spilled over onto my cheek and into my palm. Apparently Fanon saw it too and piped up. He seemed hesitant to ask, but sounded concerned all the same. Are you all right? A sudden feeling of anger washed over me, but passed quickly. For a moment, all I wanted to say was, "No, I'm not all right, you dolt. I don't even know where I am." But my reply was much less aggressive, even vague. "We're in space," I said hollowly. He blinked, not understanding. "Yes, good observation," he said with sarcasm that didn't even sound sarcastic. I learned that when Fanon was practical. I learned then that Fanon was practical. Sarcasm was like another language to him, another language which he spoke fluently and sometimes unconsciously. I sighed. I'm not exactly the person who likes to talk. It's just... I turned to him, looking him directly in his dark eyes. If you were millions of miles away from home, knew no one, didn't know who to trust, and didn't even understand how things worked, hell, I don't even know how I'm standing. Shouldn't there be like zero gravity or something? Anyway, wouldn't you feel, I don't know, suffocated? He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. They were somewhere else, somewhere in his memories. Yes, I would, and have, he replied. I began to stutter a how, but he cut me off again. It seemed to be a habit with him. My planet was destroyed. Nectaris. We knew it was going to implode for many years before it did, but we simply didn't know how to get off of it. Then one day came, and everyone endured hours of hallucinations. Some were terrible, some were pleasant, then gradually became terrible. My family and I were some of the only ones left when the scavengers came. We had hidden in a bunker, but we still heard the whirl of the engines. One of my sisters, Fadine, decided to go up to the surface. We all thought they had come to help us. He paused for a moment and looked at me. There was anger in his eyes, black as night and red as blood, but not for me. They took her from us. They only wanted to take the treasures from our dying world for their own wealth. I never knew what happened to her. They probably disintegrated her on the spot. He spat, still looking at me. Even though I knew he couldn't possibly be angry with me, I was intimidated. I had never seen someone look so angry. His face softened, as if he read my mind. I was 7 years old, he said numbly. Upon trying to speak, I realized that I was holding my breath. I'm so sorry. I didn't know, I sputtered. He smiled again at me and handed me a tissue. It's all right. Eventually the ship came and saved the remaining survivors. I understand and promise you it gets better. Out there, we are free. There is so much to learn, so much to explore. His eyes took on a different shine. It didn't sound like he was talking to me anymore. I smiled a bit. Now, let's get you cleaned up and taken to the captain. Our excuse is that I found you on the transport pad, unconscious.